This is a really, really good discussion. Yes, it's a week old, but I wanted to share this as some really critical key points that you could really take away from this to give some depth onto the situation that's going on right now in the Middle East. Great discussion. If you look into either one of these gentlemen, you'll find that they've been very much involved with everything from the beginning. Good people.
Things will probably get a lot more serious. Our borders have been open. Trump is a Zionist, and the Zionists clearly are destroying the United States. I would not doubt if the IDF or somebody puts a missile into one of our aircraft carriers. I wouldn't doubt it. They did it to the USS Liberty, right? People say, that's insane. You can't say that. You're anti-Semite. I'm like, I don't know. Zionist isn't Semite. Israel does this stuff. That's like morning breakfast for them to do false flags, right? This is normal business for them.
Welcome, Michael. It's always an honor to have you on.
Oh, Michael, thanks for having me on. We're in Bangkok now. You know, Masako and I just spent 3 months in Europe. We were in Netherlands and Germany and Sweden and Norway and Denmark. And when we just left Denmark, we were in Denmark looking at the Danish Straits. So we were over there looking at the war issues. We were obviously not on vacation. In fact, we stayed for more than a month with Catherine Austin Fitz. And so, it was really amazing. We had been doing quite a few interesting things. People were flying in from different countries to come see us, like Japan and whatnot. And anyway, so we ended up at the Danish Straits in Denmark, right? Because that's directly related to Panama and other routes and resources issues. Because, you know, the Danish Straits is as important to parts of Europe as Panama Canal is to the United States. It's extremely important, right? Yeah. And nearby things as well, like the Kiel Canal and that sort of thing. Anyway, so this thing started to kick up. And, you know, with, the war on Iran. And as you know, we've been all talking about that for a long time. And Masako and I finally said, well, it's time to punch out of here, because we might get stuck in Europe. Because we wanted to get back to Asia. And so we started plotting our routes back and, didn't look at Qatar Air or Emirates, even though I love those airlines. But we actually took Turkish Air because, we had to make a connection to get back. And so we took Turkish Air and, we landed in Turkey. And we saw the IOM there loading up people to get on a flight to Vancouver. A bunch of, appeared to be Middle Easterners or maybe somebody from parts of Asia. But anyway, there was a mixed group actually. And so, we saw the invasion still going in with IOM that we've talked about so many times, International Organization for Migration. Yeah. And then we finally landed in Bangkok for some meetings. So we're here back in Bangkok. As you know, I used to have an office in Chiang Mai in Thailand. So I'm very familiar with this place. But we wanted to be on this side of the war before anything kicked off because we didn't want to get stuck. And so that looks like what's happened. We got here just in time, actually. And the flights have started. Some of the flights have been obviously halted going through the Middle East. Anyway, The shooting has begun, as you well know.
All right. So let me just set the context here for our audience. So you and I are talking sort of afternoon time, Central Time, USA time on Saturday. But this won't run until probably Sunday morning. So a lot can happen after we end up talking here. Obviously, this is a rapidly escalating situation. But talk to us about what we know right now. I mean, a major U.S. radar installation destroyed. And then, of course, you've been the voice warning about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which appears to have taken place. But you have a different take on what may be happening there. So where do you want to begin on all this?
Right. It actually is Sunday morning here in Thailand. So I'm slightly ahead. And, but I've been to that Bahrain headquarters. In fact, I flew in, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates picked me up in Afghanistan and we flew various places together. And one of the places we flew to was that headquarters in Bahrain, 5th Fleet headquarters. 5th Fleet is the naval fleet that covers that area of the world and Africa and that sort of thing. So that's, so I was actually in that headquarters. Very interesting. Got a briefing from the Admiral there at the time, Admiral Gortney. It's fascinating stuff. But at the end of the day, you saw that drone that allegedly hit. I mean, it looked like it was a real slow drone and it hit that radar. If that's a legit video, imagine how weak our defenses are that a drone that's coming in that, flies about the speed of a a messenger pigeon. You know what I mean? And it's one of our radars, and it's in slow motion. I mean, if it's legit, and it probably is in that particular case. But as you know, this is a war, so there's everything subject to being a lie and just wrong. But what we can see is the war has clearly begun, and since the beginning, I've been saying I think that the Strait of Hormuz will be closed. And I have told Japanese, like a Japanese team just flew in from Japan to meet us in Norway and Denmark. And I told them to tell all of their people back in Japan, if the Strait of Hormuz closed, everybody in Japan should be buying food right now, right? So right now, if you're in Japan, buy food. That's what I would do. And I would prepare yourself, because we don't know how long this will be closed. At the end of the day, the Strait of Hormuz, why would Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? That's like, the United States, or let's say Zionist forces, which is more accurate, obviously destroyed Nord Stream. Misako and I got that right way in advance. You and I have talked about it numerous times.
Yes.
We went to Germany and reported on it way in advance, and multiple times, many times. And finally, we were there in Germany 14 days before Nord Stream was destroyed. We were there specifically warning about Nord Stream. We were at the BASF plant in Ludwigshafen, Germany. Boom, it happened, right? So why are we getting so many of these things like screwworms right? Because we know the main oligarchical structures that are fighting, and we know what their main goals are. For instance, causing global famine is one of those with the Zionist forces. The Zionist forces are the ones that push the death jab, right? So those are the ones who actually push that's them. The ones who, when you see Americans dying all over the place and Japanese dying all over the place from the jab, that's them. They're attacking us as much as they're attacking Iran, and they're using us to attack Iran. This is a beautiful dark art. And so now, who would close the Strait of Hormuz? Why would Iran close it? That would be like saying Russia would blow up Nord Stream. When Zionist forces destroyed Nord Stream, keep in mind, U.S. presidents had bragged about, we're going to shut Nord Stream, right? There were multiple people bragging about it. It was obvious it would probably happen, and then it happened, and then immediately they blamed Russia, and people believed them. Even Germans. Almost every German I spoke with thought Russia did it. I'm like, why would Russia cut their own throat? It was clearly, anyway, at the end of the day, Zionist forces did it. We all know that. They've admitted to it. Either that or space aliens. But, then it came, and same with the Strait of Hormuz. Why would Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? They have no reason to do it. They have reasons to close it to Zionist forces' ships, military action, of course. They have reason to close it to trade that's going to nations that are fighting against Iran, but Iran has zero interest in closing the Strait of Hormuz. That's in fact, China will not like that at all. Japan's not going to like it. Many countries, including all the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, of course, Kuwait, Iraq.
I understand
they're all going to be affected.
Okay, but hold on. A couple of things, and I want you to answer these to your, whatever. It's okay. You don't have to agree with me, but it seems like there's a rumor that there's been an attack on a Saudi oil field by Iran. There's clearly been an attack on the Fifth Fleet headquarters. People are getting hit in Bahrain, UAE. Other Arab states in the region are getting hit by Iran. It seems to me that Iran no longer cares about pissing off its neighbors there with the closure of Hormuz. What would you say to that?
No, that's accurate. Good shot. That's important. What you're saying there is important. So it could be in their best interest to close it off in that, to close off their energy, right? Now, keep in mind, Houthis have shot quite a lot at Kingdom of Saudi Arabia before. They've had a lot of shooting going. This is a complex region, as you know. And so, in that regard, yes, they could have a reason to want to shut the Strait of Hormuz. But again, China, China needs that energy coming out of there, as do Japan and many others, right? So there's reasons to want to keep it open. Russia would want to keep it open as well. Now, let's see how it plays out. Yeah, let's see how it plays out.
China needs that strait to function, but China has also stockpiled a massive supply of oil for 2 years, So they could actually make it through this much better than Europe, let's say.
Right. Well, let's see how it plays out. You know how these things go. Wars are unpredictable and they grow. Let me bring up one thing, by the way, on the Iran thing. People keep hitting me with, oh, what about those, 30 some odd thousand people that they just killed in the protest? Where's your evidence of that? Trump has said 32,000 were killed in the Iranian protest. How do you kill 32,000 people that quickly with small arms, right? Are they dropping, fuel air bombs over Tehran, over their own people? No, they're not. And Trump also said,
it's clear. Let me just interrupt. Those numbers are just completely fabricated by the U.S. State Department and Trump and Rubio, and just repeated by J.D. Vance and others. It's just typical lies from the Epstein administration. So we all know that. But before you, I'm sorry to interrupt, Michael, but before you keep going here, we got to talk about the fact that Yemen has announced they're closing the Red Sea. Nobody's going to be able to go through the Suez also. So now we're talking about Hormuz and Suez both closed at the same time. Talk to us about what that's going to do to global supply chains.
Oh, this is a big one. And let me finish that on the 32,000, because Trump was also saying 38,000 Americans were killed building the Panama Canal. 38,000 Panama Canal, which is an abject lie. I've got the original reports to Congress, with the yellow pages and all that stuff, right? And so it was like roughly 350, right? Versus 38,000 Americans, right? Why did he have to lie? I mean, there's enough reasons to guard the canal without lying. And then he's saying 32,000 in Iran. Anyway, now let's go back to the Yemen and the Houthis and whatnot. This is very important. Directly related to Minnesota. How does that happen? You see what was just happening in Minnesota, Somaliland, right? So for those who have maps in front of them, or unless you have maps in your head like I do, Somaliland, if you look where Somaliland is, not Somalia, but Somaliland, right next to Djibouti, right? Right there, across the water from Yemen, right? That has been a Zionist dream since the 1800s to take Somaliland and make that a homeland for the Jews. Actually, it's about control over that sea route right there, the Bab el-Mandeb, which goes right by Djibouti, of course, and then you go through, and then the next thing you know, you're at the Suez Canal, right? So anyway, Somaliland. Somaliland is a place where HIAS operates. We all know who HIAS is, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and they take Somalis directly from there. Keep in mind, what's happening in Somaliland, Israel is the only country that's recognized it. It happened about a month ago that recognized and said Somaliland is its own country. If you look where that's at, right, it's lining up for this war right here and to seize control of the Bab el-Mandeb, right? Now, if you look at, HIAS was taking people from Somaliland and putting them in Minnesota, right? Because remember, they take people from places that are targeted and put them to places that are targeted. There's poetry in motion here. They don't waste action, right? If they're taking people from a part of Bangladesh, it's because they're doing something in that part of Bangladesh, right? But they were taking people from Somaliland and putting them in Minnesota, where you'll see, if you look online and just web search HIAS Minnesota, you'll see HIAS directly involved in these protests, directly involved in installing people in office. It's right there in the open. They don't hide it. I mean, it's in news articles. It's in their press releases. Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, the same people that are down in Panama, pulling people through the Darien Gap. That is the same people that took people from Somalia and put them in Minnesota. Why Minnesota? Minnesota, routes and resources, headwater of the Mississippi River, right there on Lake Superior, right? Lake Superior, you can access from Minnesota and take a ship and go all the way to Hamburg, Germany. You can take a ship from Minnesota and go anywhere in the world. I mean, that's connected to the Atlantic Ocean, right? It goes through the Great Lakes and all those locks. How many locks is it? 60 something? And I think it was like 67 or I can't remember. But there's a lot of locks. You go through all these locks. Next thing you know, you're out on a salty ship and you're in Hamburg or someplace, right? So, I mean, what I'm getting to is the railways and whatnot that go through Minnesota. That's what this is about. So they're taking people out of a place they want to depopulate because they want to take it, Somaliland, and they're putting them into a place that they want to take. They want to depopulate that from Americans like us, right? So that's what this is about. Who's doing that? Zionists, straight up, hardcore, right in the open. It's not hidden at all. It's they're doing it in plain view. And the moment you notice it, of course, we know what they do then. They threaten to sue you, or they do sue you, or whatever, right?
Right. Okay. Wow. So this is, of course, an expansive global strategic control over routes and resources, and especially waterways, which you have spoken about for many, many years. You've been right about it again and again. It's almost like what's happening today is exactly what you laid out 3 years ago, sometimes in our interviews. But I want you to talk about the more immediate impacts right now of what happens if the Strait of Hormuz stays closed for 30 days and if the Suez stays closed for 30 days. Just what happens?
Well, your readership is global. I've said many times, whatever country I go to, people come up and say, I saw you on Mike Adams' show. So wherever you're at, for instance, Japanese listeners, of which there are a lot, at this point, you need to stock up on food. And if it turns out to be not a big deal, good. Eat the food and it'll be done. But at a minimum, the prices probably will substantially go up at a minimum. If this is closed for 30 days or 60 days or keeps going on, this could be very significant, because it could that will immediately affect energy prices, obviously. And energy prices, as you've talked about many times, Michael, all boats of prices rise on energy prices. Whether, everything, if the energy prices are higher, everything's higher. And so this, at a minimum, your food prices are going to be higher. At a maximum, if this goes on, it will clearly spread because that's what wars do. That's like a rule of war, right? I mean, right. A rule of war prediction is that they spread unpredictably and they last longer than people expect. This has all the components of World War III. All the components are there at the table, right? The big players, Russia, China, United States, and India, all of the big players, Europe as a collective, everybody's interested in this.
Do you think that this is going to calm down tomorrow or over the weekend, or is this going to escalate over the weekend?
Trump doesn't control it anymore. The shots are fired, right? Now, if they sense weakness from the United States, which they probably do with our aircraft carrier floating in its own sewage, apparently, and all sorts of other things, why would Iran and their partners stop when they can actually eject the U.S. Navy from the Persian Gulf, right? They might give the U.S. Navy free passage out of, whatever Navy ships are in the Persian Gulf, they could be trapped there. You're going to go through the Strait of Hormuz to get your Navy ships in and out of there. Nope. Good luck with that one. So we weren't able to stop the Houthis, and the Houthis are not nearly as powerful as Iran. And Iran has got direct support from China and Russia, and that includes intelligence, obviously. Look, you got three groups of highly intelligent people, Chinese, Russians, and Iranians, all of whom are quite tough, right? Israel has not been able to defeat the people in Gaza. I see the reports coming out of Gaza daily. They're still highly kinetic there. They're still doing airstrikes every day. I mean, like bombings, right? They're still doing drone strikes every day, sniper shots every day. The people in Gaza are still fighting the Israelis, even while the Israelis rob Americans blind of more hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So even after Gaza has been flattened, they're still fighting, right? What chance do they have against Iran and the Houthis and all these others who are way far flung, or Pakistan, right? Who has nuclear weapons? Now, you saw, recently, India and Israel are snuggling up closer and closer. Obviously, India would love to go for Pakistan and that sort of thing. And of course, because India's always got that thing going against China, and Pakistan, uses that port, Gwadar, right? That's the same port that we used in Afghanistan, by the way. United States forces used, or let's say our coalition forces used the port of Gwadar, down there, on the Indian Ocean to bring up supplies into Afghanistan, right? So right next to Gwadar is Chabahar, but Chabahar is in on the Iranian side, right? So you got these two major ports right there. Chabahar, you're well aware of them, and Gwadar, not far from each other. These are two major ports that are going to have a big, key place in the future. Now, keep in mind, Israel wants to build the Ben Gurion Canal. They want to dominate the routes and resources in that region. But as the BRICS people build these other infrastructures, there's so many infrastructures we could talk about it literally for days, right? And so, but in summary, there's a lot of BRICS infrastructure being built that will just bypass. So sanctions won't work because they're doing it by land. You can't block them from going through the Suez because they won't go through the Suez. They'll go over railways. They'll go through pipelines. There's not just seaways and railways. It's also pipelines, right? And so, this BRICS infrastructure, which is still going to take more decades to build up, but they're getting there. And this will eventually cut off the influence from, where's Halford McKinder when you need him? This would cut off a lot of the influence from a lot of the maritime powers, which would be the United States. But of course, our maritime power has reached its apogee. It appears we hardly make any ships anymore these days.
Right.
When I look at our warships, which I see occasionally, they're rusty. I mean, our warships are rusty. You see the reports as well as our aircraft carrier filled, having sewage problems and the crews being very upset because they've been out deployed for so long on the boat. And, meanwhile, they're being pushed up. We saw this happen in the Iraq War when, the Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, one of the Stryker units from Alaska, I think it was the 172nd, Stryker Brigade. I was out with them, actually. I think it was them. They were in Iraq. They were about to be redeployed back to the United States, back to Alaska. And Rumsfeld, they were literally some of the people had left Mosul and other parts of Iraq, and they were down in Kuwait, loading up their vehicles. And Rumsfeld's like, nope, back to the war. And the guys were like, what? We just made huge plans, all these, keep in mind, the soldiers aren't rich, right? And suddenly, they got new babies and these sorts of things. And they just get jerked to go back into Iraq. And of course, Rumsfeld like, oh, basically you got to be tough. You're a soldier. Everybody gets it. But at the same time, it's a volunteer army. And it's not,
right.
By that time, people could see we're not actually fighting for the defense of the United States, right? At that point, you could start to see, wait a minute, why are we even here, right? Yeah.
Let's talk about the USS Gerald R. Ford, since you brought it up there. Those sailors have been deployed something like 250 days or so. I don't know the exact number, or maybe it's 280 days. It's a long deploy. It's way more than the normal 6 months, right? And also that aircraft carrier, they just turned off their transponder. Apparently that's being reported, and it's parked off the coast of Israel, apparently to try to provide air cover to Israel. But already Iranian drones are striking targets inside Israel that are not being intercepted by the USS Gerald R. Ford, nor are they being intercepted by the Iron Dome interceptors, the Patriot missile interceptors and so on. It looks like right now Western anti-air defenses are utterly failing. I mean, even the fact that a major radar installation was taken out by Iran. What's up with U.S. air defenses?
Look, it looks like they're just landing punches, and the defense has just got its fist hanging by its side, limply by its side. I mean, they may end up sinking one of our aircraft carriers. They may end up at least damaging. It's not going to be difficult for these people with these advanced weapons and hypersonics to take out one of our ships or more, right? And put them on the bottom of the sea, or at least make them inoperable. And then how's the United States going to respond to that? Keep in mind, the combat radius of our aircraft is already, they're beyond the limits, right? You can't just do these deep strikes and whatnot because their missiles have a larger range than our combat radius of our F-35s and whatnot, right? This is not going to go well. Many of us have been, Matt Bracken screaming at the clouds every day about this for, 2-3 years, I mean, he's right, and you have as well. This is just not going to turn out well. Iran is a serious player with land routes, with land, they can be resupplied by land or by air, just going over Asia, right? They're not going to be put out of business unless you start dropping nuclear bombs on Iran, in which case we're probably going to get nuked instantly.